Hey, what's going on, Archons? Welcome to the second part of my thoughts and my little discussion on the Standard Alliance format. And today I have actually here my decks that I wanted to go over and I mentioned, but my man Steve brought up wanting to see the deck that won the KFC that Jason brought. And well, I just found it and rebuilt it, and this is said deck. It is 119 SAS. As you can see, it has no artifact control. The board is not particularly high, and it's got not the highest creature count, but a lot of pips. So it kind of, but look at the speed, 29 speed, and then all the other stats are what you expect. Now, the interesting thing here is this has all this blue, which isn't accurate. So only Eaton's Jar actually has a pip on it. All the pips and logos are draw pips. And then Star Alliance is pretty much all draw pips as well, which is pretty wild considering you have a transporter platform. So again, this is like you kind of just, let's just break this down a little bit house by house. So the decision is, the interesting thing is Dis was in every house or in every deck of the original decks that these all came from. And then Logos and Star Alliance were in 2 of the 3 as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, and they were all like 90 SAS decks to begin with. So they were strong decks. And see, this one is 29 SAS, 34 SAS, 40 SAS in the Dis. So, I mean, if you look at this here, he's essentially created a deck that can get what's needed. The Infernus is the answer, I think, to what he saw being the Martian Generosity combo, being able to purge key components so you cannot OTK potentially. Also, Eden's Jar alone is going to be able to shut down a lot of combo decks. You just name one of the 2 combo pieces or one of the combo pieces and you can shut it down. There's board control, recursion. I mean, this to hamstring the opponent into maybe not being able to call a Mars house, for example. And that's buying time if you're waiting to pull an Eden's Jar or something like that. And then you have the Dominator Bauble for cheating, but aside from that, there's literally 3 creatures in here. But the one creature here, the Techno Fiend, is pretty handy, having the recursion aspect and then the steal. I mean, the recursion, the reap draw, plays perfectly into the autoencoder, and then there's a Chronos in here and a lot of draw pips, like a lot. I think it's like around 10 draw pips in here, maybe around there, like 8 to 10. So it's significant. And then you also have Armor Officer Nell. So after an upgrade enters play, draw cards. The amount of ability to just hold a grip of cards is incredible in this. And then you have things like Survey, so you're able to look through what you want, is really incredible. And Transporter Platform, so you literally can pick up all those things that have pips on it, drop them down again. Not to mention there's access denied that are going to just be great. Universal Translators, all these little things that are going to just do wild things. And then Hayden Oswin, which I'm not sure to what effect that was used, but it exists. The other neat thing here is, I mean, if you look, all the creatures are kind of in, like, there isn't really a subset of creatures. So this deck did not gain its Ember from reaping necessarily. I don't think it was, I think it was a very minor thing. I think it actually went from cycling, just by the looks of it, is that it just played cards and could really quickly go through the deck, and you just keep get everything back, and you just keep going and going and going, and just playing cards, gaining Ember, disrupting your opponent. I mean, there's Effervescent Principle here, which I'm sure came in handy. There's a ton of archiving in different ways, including autoencoder. So between the draw pips with the Chronos and the autoencoder, not to mention, I'm guessing the Novu did a lot of work potentially with the ability to just discard a card. Same with Munchling, maybe. I'm not sure the degree. I didn't see the game itself, but there's just a lot of ways where I think you're just playing cards and cycling through your deck so efficiently, and at the same time disrupting your opponent, that it just bought you time to do what you really wanted to do, which was just get through your deck. And that's all it was. You're pushing for check, I think, so quickly and playing so many cards that's what I think made this deck excel. Is it had a tool chest of things, one of them not being artifact control. It was literally just purging, because the recursion, the Grim Reminder, I imagine was a flexible card because you could go, I'm guessing Infernus is potentially as a target, but I'm more likely think it was to pull back probably the Star Alliance suite with all the draw pips, or maybe even Logos, depending on where the situation was. But I mean, the truth is this deck just looks like it just goes like a bat out of hell and just generates Ember. 16 pips, you just cycle through the deck and win. So I think I in the last video I said the deck was not like the OTK decks, but I think this was the second category of what exists in the Alliance spectrum of what people were building, which was a really nutty mass mutation set with really key pips. And I think out of all the pips you could have, draw pips would be probably the one of the more aggressive ones, because this is speed 29, not taking into account, oh no, I guess it is taking account the draw pips. So yeah, so that is a really, really impressive. What's the stat? Recursion, Grim Reminder. Okay, so I mean, this deck is nothing to scoff at. I mean, as much as I said it wasn't anything particular, it did do something very well, which was cycle through and generate Ember. So I think that's very interesting. I'm curious to know if a taxation against this deck, like key tax, hindered this deck in any way, but I honestly don't think so. I think the only way you could somehow hinder this deck is if you for some reason couldn't cycle. If something prevented you from cycling, that would be a huge detriment to this deck, because it just looks like it would cycle like crazy and just gain what it needed from there. And the really interesting thing is, upon cycle, is there's actually so many artifacts in here, like five artifacts, and they're all really good artifacts, like Dominator, Bauble, Essence Scale, Eden Star, Autoencoder, Transporter, Platform. Like they're very solid. So you actually make your deck smaller after the first time around, so you cycle even that much faster once you've gone through. And the Autoencoder itself, like that's just going to like insane. I'm sure there's stuff you can discard in here. I mean, it plays into itself with like a sloppy lab work. And then there's also, I mean, you're discarding Logos cards from your hand is going to also trigger. There's just a lot of things that are quite interesting to see, and I can understand now that this deck did things that is pretty neat. Like I didn't expect it to be this necessarily, but when I kind of looked into all the pieces, because I looked at the deck pictures to see where the pips work, so that was important. And it's just all draw pips, all cycle, gain Ember. It's basically play cards, game and Ember, and disrupt your opponent from doing what they want to do. Really neat strategy. Maybe I'll see if I can get a hold of Jason and have a discussion about this in the future. Now, I'm going to go over the decks I built. They're not as wild as what Jason built, but I have a few decks here that I built, and I built them for varying reasons. So the first one, and this is actually the first deck that I built, is, yeah, it's actually this one here. So it's in the order of what I built. This one here, it's the Alliance of Director Scoodulator. So basically what my thought process when I chose to build my decks was, I had a deck that I really enjoyed playing, but it was really lacking Ember control. So all I literally did was, well, actually I did a couple things. First, I was like, let's make this a Martian Generosity Key Abduction deck, but with a double Might Makes Right, with all these big Brobnar creatures. I thought that'd be amazing. Did not work. It was too much. So the idea was I would never have to forge a key technically with Ember. That was the idea behind it. Now, that being said, it was fun in theory to play, but it just didn't work. So what I realized was this deck was actually phenomenal on its own. Like the Logo suite, which is part of it here, and the Brobnar suite work really well together, and they both have things that add to the Might Makes Right having the time traveler in here was great. Like I love that. The director, project, and ZYX researcher were all really helpful for getting things back or for putting things away for later to save up. So I could almost do a might makes right turn without potentially having to have a board, because a board clear really could hamstring this. And then all I threw in was to start with a shadows delay, allowing me to buy time. Double Miasma, Swindle, Brend, Redlock, Ronnie. Like you can see the stuff here that I was going for. And it worked. Like it worked way better. I have a second version of this, which is this one here. And I think this is the one I've settled on for this deck, which is again the same Brobnar and Logos. And I'm just trying to find the right shadows. I really liked this one because the fact that you could sacrifice Brend through a Might Makes Right. And if you did, you would steal Ember. So that was kind of a cool one. And then it had the Gamgees, the little Nif, which could be used with some cool Brobnar stuff. This one just provided more of a it just provided more tools to get it done, really, at the end of the day. That's all it was. It had the really cool aspect of Heist Knight and a nice amount of Thieves, so I could steal that way. It just provided that Ember control in such a diverse way between all the different shadow stuff that it bought me the time I needed. And this one is actually really fun to play. I do really like it. I wouldn't say it's top tier, but that's just what it is. Now this deck beside this one here, this one is one where I actually went through my secondary thing of building the line. So this first one I talked about was all about, I have a deck that I really enjoy. It's really has a house that brings it down, or an aspect that brings it down. The truth was, it was the house of Untamed. It had some great things to feed into Might Makes Right, but it was completely lacking the Ember control, so it just didn't work. So that was the easy swap right there, because the Logos is really fun in this. I mean, it's pretty highly rated. Yeah, 27. The Brobnar is not highly rated, but it's so good. Like, it's got the Drummer Not Ganger Chieftain in it as well, plus so many big creatures and a Blood of Titan. Like, it's made to be a Might Makes Right. Like, I love it. It's such a fun deck to play. This actually made me appreciate Alliance so much, because I got to take a deck that I love to play but always fell a little bit short and then beef it up a bit. Now the next one here is literally just a gas deck. So I think it's the highest one I've built here, and I did not do that intentionally. What I did was I looked at decks that I had that had a singular house that I really liked, but the other two were a little underwhelming, and I put it together. Like, the odd thing is I think all three decks have the exact same houses, just the other two didn't come together. Like, it just went apart. And this one is so much fun to play. I played it in person at our local Alliance tournament, and on my very last game I did my goal of the day, which is to pull off an Imperial Forge Triumph. I think it was Triumph Imperial Forge. Yeah, I triumphed and then Imperial Forge right afterwards, and it was amazing. Chef's kiss to getting to pull that off. This deck was just really cool, and the reason why it works so well is it got triple Kirby with like, they're just really good creatures in here, like Officer Gray to get yourself going, Garcia's to buy you time, Karkars for protection, and then Walls to bring back. I don't even think I really bring anything back. Like, it's more just like get Kirby's Blaster back potentially. I didn't know they nerfed the Blaster rule so you couldn't bounce it between the same creature, which really made me upset, because that was kind of a key thing of this. I mean, you can see the speed here, 26. And I just use these components to basically take advantage of the abundance of non-creature things in this. So if you look here in Logos alone, there is a ton, like half the Logos suite is things that Kirby can play. Then we go over to Saurian, same sort of thing. You got to scoot him if you want to protect something. The Triumph, Tribute, Stomp, Phalanx Strike, Imperial Forge, Favor of Rex, all those things are really great to play off Kirby, so they all kind of worked within one another in a really great way. Plus the double Shrix is really, really nice, with the ability to potentially pull off a Tribute. Like, pull off, like with the multiple Kirby's, I think I might have done it, is you can Kirby, if you have a Shrix out, you can Kirby a Tribute, put it onto Shrix, and then another Kirby your Imperial Forge. So that's pretty cool. Like having that ability is really nice in this. So it just played really well, and it was really fun to play. I would not say this is amazing. Like it can be beat like pretty easily. I don't think it's like ridiculously good, but it did what I wanted to do, and I really enjoyed playing it. It was a cool experience of in-person KeyForge trying out Alliance. What else have I built here? This is this one I still have to test out, but it's going into some Dark Tidings stuff, which is really cool. Yeah, it's got multiple key cheats. I'm really big into the key cheat thing. If I'm going to build something, I want key cheats. So I don't know about the shadow side of it yet. That one's kind of up in the air for me, but the Sanctum and Logos is kind of fun. Part of the reason I chose Sanctum here is it's got a lot of cards that are knights, so Epic Quest can go off, but there's just a big board to play into the final analysis and really get that Data Forge final analysis play going. So that's what exists there. This one was kind of me just throwing stuff together, so we're not going to talk about that one. And then this one was I kind of looked at, again, I was going for, these decks are good, there's things I don't like about them and one thing I really like about them, and I kind of just threw them together. I have not tested this one out, but it does, again, lots of key cheats. There is the double Hunting Witch, Chota, Nature's Call, key charge situation there, so you can kind of do some ridiculous things, and then it's just got some really good shadows aspect to kind of keep things going, keep you in the game, and then just the disruption is insane in this. So I haven't played this one yet. I need to try it out, but that was my thought process here. So far I would have to say that this method here, where I had a deck that I already really liked, but one aspect was lacking, and so just swapping that out and putting something else in, that is the best experience I've had with Alliance. I've enjoyed it the most because I already understood how the Brobnar and Logos wanted to interact. And it's just a matter of folding in that third house that could complement or synergize with what was already going on. And for those of you who are really, I guess, hesitant to break into Alliance, I think that is ultimately the best approach. Don't just take your best stuff and throw it together. Take maybe something that already works well but is lacking, and then just figure a way to tweak it and sub in so that it really performs optimally for you, because I think that's what's going to provide the best play experience overall, and also give you a good introduction to what it's like, and then just keep trying a different house in there and find out what clicks. Like, don't settle on the first one you do. Play it, swap in another one, find out what you liked about it, what you didn't, and then you're going to start to see how things come together in a way that actually performs to the standard that you're looking to have for that sort of deck and gives you the most enjoyment. So I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on my thought process and putting stuff together. I do want to dive into doing a deck, an Alliance deck, where I'm really concentrating on the the enhancements. It's just going to be a very labor intensive thing, because you can't just go on DOK and pull it together. You got to then look at where all your enhancements are. I suppose if I was diligent and took pictures of all my enhancements as I load them up, I wouldn't be in this situation, but c'est la vie. So that's what the next thing I kind of want to do. So I hope everyone enjoyed this and it gave you some helpful tips. I'd love to know other people's thought process, if you've gone about Alliance differently than me, and just please comment below and tell me your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this, and as always, folks, may your ember never be stolen and your keys forged promptly. Have a good one.